What's up, everyone? Life After Sports here with a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Coach Roy Johnson.
Off to Bishop Sycamore.
Do you want my hands like this, like this?
Roy Johnson told us they had a number of Division I prospects.
Do I look like a con artist?
How this happens got a lot of people scratching their head. Bishop Sycamore is not even a real high school.
Please, sick to my stomach.
I can't believe this happened again.
My philosophy in business is do what the people who have the money do, even if you don't have the money.
Roy will tell you he's a liar.
He knew what to say, how to say it.
He's like, oh man, you gotta let that go. I said, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna let go of his neck after I grab it.
I think I'm the most honest liar that I know.
Ohio was embarrassed by this. They called the thing explicitly a scam. And then said they couldn't do a damn thing about it.
We're here to talk about kind of everything in between. So if you want to give an introduction to yourself, I know everyone knows who you are, but if you want to describe yourself and, a little bit more about yourself.
Like you said, man, I guess I'm the infamous Coach Roy Johnson. Just happy to be here. Happy to get a chance to talk and past, present, and future.
Super, super pumped to have you on there. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Like you said before we went on air, you don't do a lot of this. You kind of kept quiet since the HBO doc.
Right.
You're a very outspoken person when you do get on camera. So we're excited to talk to you a little bit more about, Bishop Sycamore and everything in between.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what I've learned, if you're going to be the loudest person in the room, you just can't talk often. So I kind of try to take that philosophy. If I'm going to be the loudest in the room, when I say stuff, I got to make it count and make sure it's very loud. So I don't want to do that too often.
I love that. I know you have some big things planned for sure. The game that changed everything, that broke the internet. Talk to me more about August 29th and what happened, what transpired on that day against IMG Academy. Like, is your phone just absolutely going berserk? Like, you can't even look at your phone. Like, tell me what happened that day.
So what's interesting about that day, one of the things that, I don't get to talk about a lot is that I was getting ready to quote unquote step down. And we had the younger coaches that were coming up that are now ironically head coaches at other high schools. But I was getting ready to step down after the game because I was like, all right, I got us to that point. I need to now focus on other things that's going on as far as football is concerned. And so as the game is going on, I try not to live in the past, right? That's what depressed people do. I definitely don't live in the future. That's what people with anxiety do. So I try to just enjoy the moment. So I was trying to just enjoy the moment of, we got to a point of just playing smaller teams, some bigger teams, some national teams, not, too big, but, historically good national teams, to now being at the Hall of Fame. And just enjoying the fact that I'm getting to play football, coach football, or be a part of a football program that's playing on a Sunday too, right? Because that's the ultimate goal when you're growing up. The ultimate goal is to get to the NFL and play Sunday. So to be playing in the NFL Hall of Fame on a Sunday, for them, I thought was great. And for me, coaching, I thought was great. There was no different in the game than anybody playing IMG, right? They up 30 points at half. They're up 30 points at half on everybody. So I didn't think anything of it. And my phone was blowing up. But as my phone is blowing up, there's just messages. And I'm looking at the messages, but I'm still trying to, focus on the game and stuff like that. So I think it was after, I think I was either on the way home, like packing, or we were going back to the hotel to pick up something. A close friend of mine that, I didn't talk to that often was like, bro, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like the game? Like they beat everybody like that. Like I'm thinking it's just a football thing. And when they started coming down with all the different things that, there was fraud charges and this and that and all the things that were said, all the things that, people cooked up on blogs and everything else, I was just like, what? And then ultimately my heart goes to cancel culture, right? Because the people cancel games. But usually they don't. And then that's when I realized how big of a deal it was, because within 24 hours, I'm getting calls from coaches.
It's so insane. People don't realize leading up to that, You have the fourth hardest schedule in the country. You getting IMG to come to Ohio and play you. Like, how does that even happen? Like, being from the Midwest, like, there's such good football programs, and relatively unknown Bishop Sycamore comes around, and you're playing the best teams in the country. How does that even happen? Like, how do you finagle your way to be that guy and be on ESPN? You know, when other teams have been doing it for so long and can't get that opportunity.
Well, the other teams that have been doing it for so long are pussy, right? So we played IMG, and then the very next year, Glenville played IMG. But that's because Coach Ginn wants to smoke, right? So he's not a coach that's going to shy away from any battles. That's why they played. And teams shy away from battles because records, so on and so forth. So it leaves these big national programs wanting games. So we take all the smoke. It does not matter, right? Because our perspective is we're not playing the game to win. We're playing the game to get highlights. We're playing the game to get exposure. So if your film, you have IMG, St. Francis Academy, some of your big programs, even if you make 3 or 4 plays a game, if you have that on your highlights, it looks a lot better than if I played these nobody teams. So if you go back on Max Preps and look at our schedule, when we played nobody teams, we beat them 66-0. We beat them 72-0 because my players were better than them. And nobody midway would play us, right? So that's when you talk about the things how did I get there and the mistakes that I made, that was one of the mistakes that I made. This time around, I'm going to play local teams and I'm going to beat the shit out of them. Like, I'm going to beat the fuck out of them. I'm going to force them to play and then beat the fuck out of them. And then just sit on the sideline and be like 84-0. Eat a dick. Because that's what y'all wanted. Right? And then when you push in all those weirdos and all those dudes that know nothing about high school football that are running around, right? And oh my God, he did this, he did that, and all that. They don't know anything about high school football, which is why they made this big thing, which is why the Hollywood and all them wanted them out, right? They're all like-minded people, right? Weirdos. They're gonna say, oh, he should have did this and he should have did that.
Now, I think you hit it right in the head. You want all the smoke. Even though you guys got blown out, your kids are getting D1 offers that week. That's what people don't know, that
right.
Your guys are getting recruited from this. Like, you're helping them get to the next level. You know, your local high school doesn't want to play IMG because they're too afraid, the scoreboard, right? Like, they're afraid of the scoreboard and the tweets and the memes. You guys didn't care. You guys played essentially back-to-back games, right? Like, you guys wanted tape. You guys were providing the opportunity to these kids. These kids really aren't that innocent. They knew what they were getting into. They knew that they were going to play this day and this day, right? It's like the coach or the players could have came up to you and said, Coach, I'm not playing today. I'm sorry.
Right. So here's the thing that I brought up, and I tell people to look it up because they don't understand, right? They just pass judgment because they listen to a bunch of gay, liberal, never touched a pigskin in their life talking about it, right? And I always bring up Harrisburg, Saquon Barkley and all them. They used to play Thanksgiving. Phillipsburg, I think it's Phillipsburg's Harrisburg. You can look it up. They played Thanksgiving. It's a traditional game that they've been playing for 100 years. They play on Thanksgiving Thursday. And then when they're both in the playoffs, have a playoff game that Saturday. I don't see anybody running around saying it's unfair that these guys are playing against Saquon Barkley twice. I didn't see any of that. So the reality of it is we played on Thursday. We didn't play on Saturday. We played on Sunday. I treated Thursday like we normally treat Thursday, live practice. And our practices are much worse than the games, right? So those guys that we needed to get reps, we went out there first team. Jeremy Naborn, which I think he has a few offers, Arizona State, Sam Houston, a few schools that he has looking at him. He caught a touchdown from Trillian Harris. As soon as they caught the touchdown, cool. We know we can drive. Y'all out the game. We didn't really care. Now, the guys that you don't know about and some of those other guys got to play in that game, and that's what it was about. But they were looking like, oh, this people played here and they played there. And I'm like, it was no different than a practice, right? But because I did it, and here's the thing. I did that before. We played on a Wednesday night, middle of the week, a game in Tennessee. And then we came up and played another team on Saturday. Like I said, it happens all the time. And if you're really concerned that much about what I did, you should definitely go look at all little leagues. You got little kids playing little league tournaments. They playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It's a crime with these little league coaches and travel ball coaches. If you look at what a youth pitcher and how many pitches he throws in a weekend for baseball, I mean, these kids are getting Tommy John earlier and earlier. Kids' arms are getting torn to shreds. You know, kids are burning out earlier and earlier in these sports. But what I will say is, do you feel any type of irresponsibility as a coach for scheduling these games from the media, or are you just, just kind of sticking what you're saying, like I don't regret it?
See, here's the problem with the truth. The truth sometimes could just sound bad. I regret it because it ended up being a bullet point against me. So yeah, I regret that because it wasn't worth it, right? It was just, we didn't have to go. We didn't have to pay for the bus. You know what I mean? And then the guys that I did the favor for, like, yeah, we'll come out there and you know what I mean, and get a good live scrimmage in. Doing that, ended up causing them to come back and look and saying, yeah, but you're playing IMG the next week. So again, how do I feel about that? So what you're saying is, we played 2 games and I played against IMG, and we scored the same score as LaSalle did the very next week against IMG, and they're Ohio State champions after I played a game a couple days before. Yeah, so we must have been that good. So, but yeah, that part I regret. I regret that it ended up causing problems. But as far as scheduling the game, no, there's nothing against it. I didn't break the rules. If you don't like the rules, or if you don't like what I did, change the rules so we can't do that. It's simple as that. But again, it's been done before. So I'm not going to take responsibility for that. And anybody who thinks different, fuck them. I mean, it happens all the time. It's happening now. Like, it happens all the time where a team plays in the middle of the week and then plays the weekend because of playoffs, holidays, so on and so forth. And again, no one says anything, but because we were on national television, again, you let these weird gay dudes say something about us, like, and oh my God, Ben Ferry said, like, who the fuck is that? Like, who is that? And that's the part that made me upset with a lot of people, like, in our communities and a lot of people from the hood. I'm like, damn, you let gay people take off the civil rights movement and you letting them tell you about sports. Like, this dude ain't got nothing in common with none of you dudes in the street, but you over here like, yeah, you heard what he said? I'm like, yeah, that just didn't fly with me.
So you finally hit the pinnacle. You get on ESPN, you're getting IMG, you're going to step down. Do you think that, like, so you're thinking, like, I've made it, like, this is my goal, like, I'm getting these kids these opportunities. Like, you think you're doing something so good, and then all the backlash happens. Do you think if ESPN never happens, you don't play IMG, your life isn't how it is now? It doesn't play out like this? Bishop Sycamore?
Oh, yeah, because, yeah, we were around for 5 years.
You just think it's
we played IMG. We played IMG less than a year before that. So again, because people are listening to a bunch of gay liberals that know shit about football, know shit about the hood, except for when they come in and gentrify it, making people say, oh, they played this IMG, how can they do that? Well, we played them a year before. This was the second time playing them. So why would we think there was anything wrong with playing them? And in fact, this is why we played them. Ohio schools were so pussy that nobody else wanted to play them in the Hall of Fame. We were scheduled to play them later in the year. I always want to play them at the back end of the year. That's my personal preference, right? It's the end of the season. We get a trip down to Florida. Everybody enjoys it. We wrap up the season. But it was hectic because we had to do that. We had Cleveland St. Edward after that. Then we had to go down to Dallas to play. So I was like, we'll play them in the beginning of the year, just get it out of the way. And that's why we ended up playing them. That's because nobody else wanted to play them. If somebody else would have played them, they wouldn't have played us. They would have rather taken somebody else. But nobody else obviously wanted the smoke. And even now, look at IMG's schedule. Like I said, you'll get the Maslin coach will fuck with them. Ted Ginn gonna take any smoke. But all these historic programs in Ohio, they're not about to go do that, right? They want to go and blow up little schools and beat little schools that don't really matter. So, and I mean, that's just that. But yeah, to answer your question quickly, if we never go on to ESPN, we're still running.
I think it's pretty crazy. You played IMG a year before, and then you play them again on national TV. Why is IMG so quiet about not saying anything, right? Like, they didn't do any due diligence on you guys, obviously, right? They already played you. Why are they all of a sudden being so quiet and not wanting to say anything? Ultimately, it falls on them for being ignorant, right? Like, they see a roster and a lot of the guys aren't Division One guys, and now they want to be quiet like they didn't have anything to do with it. Obviously, they wanted to play you guys, you know.
So that wasn't. Yeah, so that's the thing. Dodling them at IMG agreed to play, and they knew who we were. But not only that, we were on tour all summer before that. So everybody knew Trill had a Louisiana Tech offer. Everybody knew Jeremy Naborn had TCU, Tennessee, so on and so forth. Everybody knew the athletes that were on our team that had those offers already. So when you send your roster in, again, this is all information that was made available to the producers that did the documentary. In fact, that was the argument, right? So when I got there, they were just like, you said you had D1 offer people, and ESPN said that wasn't true. The reason that things went left is because the announcers from ESPN, Shariar, whatever the fuck his name, his bitch ass, the dude that was with him, I forgot his stupid ass, just a bunch of dudes that, again, not real athletes, but dick suck so much that they want to be next to the athletes. That's why they're doing high school games. When they looked at the roster that was there, they said, we couldn't verify that anybody was D1. Well, you didn't go to 247 Sports or Rivals because all of them are on there. Our running back is Mikos Todd. He had an Alabama offer. So what you're saying can't be true. But it didn't matter because that's just what they said. So I don't really want to get into I'm mad at ESPN, right? Because being mad at ESPN and Disney, I don't want any Avengers showing up at my doorstep, right? So I'm not really mad at them per se, but I'm definitely mad at the two announcers. Like, those are people, like, off the record, those are people that, like, I want to smack the shit out of if I ever see them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you said some bullshit, like all you could have said, and you said shit that was not true. And because you said this shit that wasn't true, like I said, all them weird gay dudes jumped on it that want to be reporters and all that. They jumped on it and just started saying, yeah, there was no D1 offer people. That's not true. I gave you the names. You can look them up. You can look them up now and saw that they had offers. A lot of them had grade issues. But what people forget is the year before was COVID. So a lot of those guys that had COVID offers and stuff like that needed to go to camp and come back. And that's what they did. And so that's I don't blame IMG, because IMG, if it wasn't for IMG, we wouldn't have been playing, right? So they took the game. So they didn't have a problem with it because they knew the roster. You know what I mean? They're not stupid. They do their research. What IMG couldn't predict was the announcers making the situation worse than it was by saying, oh, these guys weren't D1. And that just wasn't true. And that's because the announcers ain't shit.
I think the announcers definitely played a big role in the controversy. They wanted their name and voice out there. Everyone wants to be heard. Now, when you talk about your roster, right, it goes to post-grad and high school. It kind of gets convoluted, kind of, the stories back and forth. They show in the documentary a kid that spent 2 years at JUCO, now playing in quote-unquote high school games. Like, what would you say to those people that were saying you had older people than high school age playing in games?
Look up the people that they're talking about and look at their age. They're 19. A lot of kids were like, oh, I'm going to go to JUCO. I'm going to go there and get thrown out, left, whatever the case may be, and come back and play prep ball. You know what I tell people to do? Because they don't have time to do this. And fuck them too, because they acted crazy and now the coach is different. You should look up St. Thomas More School. It's a high school. Just look it up anytime you're free. And when you look up St. Thomas More High School, look who they play. So on their roster, you'll see that on their schedule, they play IMG High School, St. Francis Academy High School. They'll play another prep school over there like Deer Park, or they'll play Suffield Academy, right? And then after that, they're playing JV college teams. So how are they playing JV college teams and playing high school teams at the same time?
It's interesting. I never really thought about that, and definitely will take a dive into that.
Go ahead, St. Thomas. Look. If you look at St. Thomas More School, they're in Connecticut. You're gonna look at that, and guess what you're gonna say? You're gonna say the same thing that them fucking producers said at HBO. Really? Yeah, really, because you don't know what you're talking about. You're listening to a bunch of gay dudes who never played the sport. Like they're not a part of the community. Like I said, gay people are only part of the black community when it's time to vote for Democrat, when it's time to steal civil rights, and when it's time to move into gentrified neighborhoods. Other than that, gay motherfuckers don't really fuck with niggas except for in prison. So I don't know why all of a sudden you was listening to these motherfuckers, but you decided to listen to them because guess what? It made a good story. Guess what? You sold to the people at HBO. You sold to Michael Strahan, hey, we got this guy who's a crook and this, and that. Now, what you should have did is went back to Michael Strahan and say, yo, it's not really what it was made to be by these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. Take a look at that, man. St. Thomas More, as soon as we get off the phone, when you look at it and look at their schedule, I promise you, you're going to be like, holy shit. Because prep schools do that all the time. So they have prep schools that have post-grad and have high schools on the same team. I'm not the first to do it.
No, I think it's such an interesting conversation, and definitely going to take a deep dive into that.
Yeah, but even if you don't like that, let's take a bigger look, right? Let's look at something real big. I tell people, go look at the youngest ball, whichever one he is. What, LaMelo?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the youngest one, right? So check his story out. His dad took him to go play professional basketball, right? In Turkey. He then came back to the United States and played high school ball at Spire. Check it out.
Baseball, they don't go back to high school, but they go back to college sometimes from playing pro ball.
For playing pro ball.
Yeah.
Right. So again, the reason that it was an issue because we did it is because it was on national television and being talked to or brought to attention by those dudes. So they wanted to make it that type of that was the story. That was their narrative that they wanted to push. But in all actuality, like I said, take a look at St. Thomas More, take a look at Melo Ball, take a look at that. So if he can go to Turkey and play professional basketball and come back and play prep, what did I do? The kids got thrown out of school. They had nowhere to go. And they were of age.
I think you're doing the community a service, right? Like you want to help these kids.
Right.
Maybe people don't understand how the system works, the rules work, and you get a bad rap, right? Because you didn't create this narrative, right? The media immediately comes and swoops up. How can we spin the story to sell articles, right? Sell a documentary.
Right. That's what they did. And guess what? They did a very good job. And then when they say I take advantage of young niggas, think about how Hollywood takes advantage of young niggas. Because y'all, we want you to come on here and lie. And we'll pay you to lie. So we'll pay you to lie. So we'll pay you, call it a scholarship, and we'll pay you to lie.
That's what you're saying. They were the people that came and talked about you on this documentary, some former players. They were posting pictures of checks from HBO.
Right, that they got from a scholarship from the Bishop Sycamore HBO. Yeah, you paid them. And it's cool. I'm not even mad because guess what? You got a broke, homeless, no parents. Your daddy ain't shit because he in prison. Your mama ain't shit because she fucked him. Right? That's just the reality of it. So guess what? You need the $15,000. The reason that irritated me, all the fucked up shit that I did, don't say that I was taking out PPP loans knowing that I didn't and the producers knowing that I didn't, right? Like that's just cool. That's beyond snitching in the hood. But I can't expect you to not be a snitch because all you niggas that was in it was raised by bitches. So you act like females. Like none of y'all had the heart to be like, hey, look, this nigga did this fucked up. I felt like he did this fucked up, but I'm not about to lie on this nigga, and I'm not about to do this to another nigga, right? And you siding with the same people who like black people and trying to help black people, and we're trying to help you. There's a bunch of weird ass weirdos that was doing that, and then they took advantage. Now, the reason I'm not mad at them per se is because, like I said, your parents weren't shit. And I will keep saying that because it's the truth. Your parents weren't shit. So when they came to you and said, hey, we're going to give you $15,000, call it a scholarship, them niggas didn't take that check and go to college. Like, did you really think they was going to take the check and go to college? Of course they weren't. And $15,000, I don't know how much community college they could actually pay for.
Maybe a semester with, housing and eating and this and
that. Exactly. You wasn't about to do that. So now, documentary's over. They made money. Everything is cool. And guess where these niggas call to ask for money, ask for help, see if I can help them get into college? Me. Exactly. Because they never actually gave a fuck about you. The one nigga that was on there talking about how I beat up the guy this nigga's in jail for vehicular homicide. Like, these niggas wasn't shit before I met them. So I tried to give them an opportunity. And that's where I made a mistake, because there's certain people that you just can't help. And those happen to be some of those people.
I've obviously got to know you throughout the years, and like, I know you're a good person, and I think that you're did a lot of great things, but obviously there's mishaps along the way, probably things you wish you could have done over. But ultimately, you're coaching, right? Like, you aren't becoming a millionaire. You're not,
Not at all.
you're not, like, you're doing this out of your good heart. Your story, your brother played football. You want to stay in football. You want to help the city and these young, underprivileged kids get to the next level because, like you said, their parents aren't doing the job. You're stepping in, doing it for them. You're doing all these great things. However, like, these people aren't appreciative. And then kind of the downfall from there, like, you're doing all these things that, aren't necessarily, approved, or they're frowned upon by a lot of people to try to get there, right? Not every path is a straight line. So I think that's the mishap. Like, I think the intention's good, but the path or the execution maybe wasn't there. Would you agree?
Sure.
Most
Of course. Like, yeah, of course. You know what the execution should have been? The execution should have been, had a lot of money and push, right? That was the thing. Get a lot of money, have great facilities, then push. But I tell you another thing that I made a mistake, right? The top 10% of society does not need help. The bottom 10% that I was trying to help, fuck them niggas too. I'm gonna start helping middle class people that just need a little push, right? Because they have both parents at home. They understand what's going on. They just need a little bit of exposure. And then if things go sideways, good or bad, it's reflecting on the things that happen and then moving forward. Not producers showed up, so I'm going to have to say that this was all Roy's fault. You really didn't believe that. Like, that wasn't true. Like I said, the one dude that was talking crazy, who's like close to my family, yeah, he's in jail. You can look it up. Quincy Talman, she's in jail for vehicular homicide. Like, so think about the type of person you'd have to be to kill somebody, run somebody over, and run away. Right. So all of a sudden now this person has so much value in what they're saying. Go back and look at the other people that are there, right? Because if you're saying that your 2-3 weeks with me, 4 weeks with me was the reason that your life is so messed up, you've now had 3 years to recover from that and $15,000 to lie about it. So you should be okay right now. You should be at least in a position of, hey, I could take this money and get an apartment, I can get a little bit of car, and I can go to work. And I can pay some bills. You know what niggas is going to be? They're going to be smoking weed and trying to be rappers. Because they weren't shit before they got to me. And time will tell. Because if you look at the people that they interviewed that they didn't include, guess where they're going to college? Youngstown State, Sam Houston, Alabama State, Tennessee. So how are they going to these schools if the program was terrible and everything else? Oh, they made it in spite of you. I wish that would be correct. But what you got to realize is that extra year that they spent with me, guess what these guys did? They went to camp. That's another thing we did that they didn't talk about. I took them to camp from the first camp in May all the way to July. We spent 3 months on the road. That's how they got in front of these colleges. So you look at it that way, like, well, how did it work for them, but it didn't work for these guys over here? Well, that's the guys that it didn't work for. Guess what? You'll be a part of the documentary. The guy Pahokee that was talking all types of crazy shit, lying about offers and everything else. Where is he? Nowhere. Why didn't you go to JUCO?
Were they lying about your coaching when you said you were basically stealing plays from Madden?
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. That's just...
It seems crazy, right? Like, you think
that's the thing, right? But HBO knew that too, right? They knew that too because they said, "Oh, you stole plays from Madden." I was like, "Well, if I did have plays, I would have to have a playbook, correct?" They were like, "Yeah, like cool." Gave them a copy of the playbook. It's like, does that look like Madden to you? Describes the philosophies, our philosophies, offensive philosophies, defensive philosophies, the plays that we run, the positions, the motions. Like, yeah, we have our own names for stuff. So if I did steal it from Madden, cool. You could easily just grab the playbook and tell. We got a 90-page playbook. So I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, and I think that kind of just goes to the fact where the media spins it a certain way, and they want to portray themselves and prop it up for clickbait, right?
Right. And I get that. See, that's the flip side of it, right? I understand Hollywood now. Before I didn't, right? Because I was brainwashed to think like, hey, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to explain this and show them all that. Matter of fact, the first time I interviewed with them, I was like, this is going to look great, man. This is going to expose so many faults that are in the system and everything else. And I should have known something was wrong because I actually got a heads up from somebody. He said, they're going to try to fly you back out and then just basically throw a bunch of stuff at you that just isn't, that you're going to be like, huh? And I was like, well, they can't do that. In fact, when I was done interviewing the first interview, they went to the back room and called the reporters that first broke the story. And they were like, they literally said to him, they're like, do you have anything else? Because everything you guys are saying, he has an answer for it. Then that's when all of a sudden that fat fuck showed up and was like, he was taking out PPP loans. Like they needed a hook. You know what I mean? So that's what they used. And they knew it was, and that's the part that I'm so salty about, because that doesn't take much investigation, right? You could find out when the PP loans were taken out. You know what I mean? And you had something foul because I had to make sure I covered my ass. I got all the players recording like, yeah, they made me say it. That wasn't it. They cut it and edited it. Like I got it all recorded. And I'm like, yeah, like I should just show up and be like, hey. But I kept it just in case one day, you know what I mean? Because you never know with like local law authorities, especially in Ohio, because they ain't got shit better to do here. I was like, just in case they show up, I'm gonna be like, here. But that's the thing I told him. I said, when the guys are taking out PPP loans, you know where the money goes. See if any of that money came to my account. It didn't. It went to all their personal accounts because they were doing PPP loans on their own. Everybody was. But I told people I don't take government money. That's just not something I do. Like, I didn't take any because I was like, yeah. And think about it. We had a business.
Right.
So we
it's
actually.
It's pretty easy to look up.
Right. That's pretty easy to look. Right. All of it. Right. So that's one of the things. It was easy to look up. Y'all didn't look it up. And you didn't care, or you did look it up and you didn't care the fact that it wasn't true. So take your pick on whatever you thought it was. But, you know, they had to do that to sell the film. And on the other side of it, I was willing to play the villain just a little bit. Otherwise, the shit wouldn't have worked.
For sure. I think you play a great persona in the doc. You feed into it, right? Like, how do I have my hands like this? Do I look like a con artist, right?
Yeah.
You're giving them all the... Man, if you didn't do that, it flops, right? And they don't make a lot of money. You made them a killing by acting like that, right? Like you knew what you were doing most definitely.
Yeah, all that was all just me being me. The part that I didn't plan for, like I said, is when they said the PPP loans. That's why you could tell the whole mood changes. I'm just like, no, I didn't do that. That's not, I mean, you guys are making a federal, you know what I mean? The rest of that shit, you want to talk about killing geese and all that other shit, whatever. I hate them shits now. Just fuck up my yard, man. Give a fuck about that shit. Like, I really don't care. So there's nothing you can make me say that, you know what I mean, that makes me care. But when you say certain things, I'm not gonna accept that as being true because there's no reason to lie. I did a lot of other things that were wrong. You know what I mean? It's just like the other conversations I had. I say very clean. There's certain things I did right. There's certain things I did wrong. The things that I did wrong, we could talk about that. I'm an adult to admit what I did wrong. But what I'm not going to do is sit up here and say, oh, I did that wrong and that never happened, especially committing a federal crime. You talk about 150 kids at $20,000 apiece in PPP loans. That's real prison. That's
real prison.
Yeah. That's Fed time. You doing 80% of that even in good behavior.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I don't like football that much. I don't think I like anything that much.
Amen. In the doc, they say no practice, no food, no classes. They were kind of just up at the hotels, you know, just chilling most of the time. Kind of walk me through that on, is that a majority of a lie from these people? How true it is? Are you guys just showing up on game and just, you know, suiting up and playing?
So you take, we'll get rid of the last year of Bishop Sycamore, 2021. Let's just keep that on the side. And let's talk about 2019, 18, and 17, right? We had a total of a 500 record. So if you're saying that we had a 500 record and didn't have any practice, never ate any food and all of that, well, then I'm a genius. So that just can't be. And they always ate. Now, whether they liked it all the time or not, that's a whole nother discussion, but they always ate. There was always There was always, it was just like school lunch, right? So there was always peanut butter and jelly and stuff like that, but then and cereal and stuff like that for breakfast and peanut butter jelly for lunch. But there was always something different all the time. So when they said that they weren't eating, they can go fuck themselves, right?
I think
Because that the people that are saying that, the people that are saying that are the ones, again, the ones that either had to get kicked off the team or it didn't work out for them. But if you talk to any of the rest of them, they're gonna be like, yeah, we ate, and whatever the case may be. And here's the thing: I didn't charge you any money to come here. So if you didn't like what we had to eat, guess what you could have done? Ask your parent, your mother's boyfriend, or whoever she's fucking, to send you some money if you didn't like it. But let me tell you something. You didn't hear any complaining on all 40 of them getting on a bus and traveling around the country and going to hotels and not eating, because are you going to convince me or convince anybody that you weren't eating and then going to football camps for 6 hours a day? They was eating in hotels. We were going to all-you-can-eat restaurants. And again, stuff that I showed the producers, here are the receipts. Thousands of dollars spent on restaurants. Every time we go to a restaurant, we at least go to a restaurant once a day, 40 people, $20 a piece was $800 every time we ate at a restaurant. Thousands of dollars on pizza, thousands of dollars on protein shakes, protein powders, Gatorade and stuff like that. All that stuff that they were saying were the people that needed something to say. I was starving. Really? Did any of y'all look starving to me?
the 300-pounder. I'm
Yeah.
starving.
I'm starving. I didn't eat. Yeah, okay. But like I said, the people that they interviewed that said the opposite didn't make it. Not one person interviewed were any of the students who were there from the beginning to the end. So we had 9 players on the team that were there from freshman year all the way to senior year. That was their senior year, their last year. And not one of those 9 made it. Don't you find that funny? That's like me going to your high school, right? And saying, I want to do a documentary about the 2008 football season. But I'm going to interview all the freshmen that didn't make the team. Why wouldn't you interview the seniors that were there the 4 years before? How did Javen not make it? How did Greg not make it? Greg got interviewed, but all his shit got cut. Because he was like, yeah, that shit didn't happen to me. They didn't interview Noah McClendon, number 2 quarterback, Bowling Green offer. They didn't interview any of them. They didn't interview Josh Bogan, Calvin Dawson. Like Josh Bogan got the Tennessee offer and all that. He was that really big quarterback that was ripping people's heads off. He never got interviewed. They never interviewed him. Like, why not? Because his story would have been different. His story would have been like, yo, I was on the streets. I was chilling. Nothing was working out. He told me to come in, knock some heads off in Cleveland St. Ignatius. And the next thing I know, I got a Cincinnati offer. Luke Fickell, Marcus Freeman are calling me, offering me scholarships, Tennessee. And so you have that and you're like, well, wait a minute. Because they could have told that story, right? They could have told the Bishop Sycamore Netflix Florida side of the story, right? Where like you watch Urban Meyer and them like, oh, there was just a little bit of bad, and then told the other side of it, but they chose not to because they had sold some bullshit to Smack, and Smack sold it to whoever, and now you have to say something fucked up.
Yeah, I like I said before, I think it just gets, the narrative, once the media gets it, they spin it, and it's tough to go back, right? Once it goes a certain way, they don't want to ever show, maybe we were wrong on this aspect. It's just, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's out. There's no going back.
Right, you just can't. And that's why, looking back at it and then looking at people now, right? So now it's slowed down, but like Dr. Phil and just all the different people we were talking about that wanted to do something. And Dr. Phil, actually, I got a lot of respect for his producers because they were like, it just didn't line up. The thing I couldn't get to line up with them is that they wouldn't tell me who their surprise guests were. And when you do that, I'm not playing around. You bring a surprise guest on here that I don't like, and Dr. Phil, you about to go viral.
I love that. I will say you have the best scam I've ever heard of because I'm a fan. Rotisserie chicken, making the phone call. Man, that is the most creative thing I've ever heard on a budget. I'm surprised more college JUCOs on a tight budget aren't doing that. Love that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about things that are anecdotal, right? It becomes more of a myth, legend than what actually happened. What actually happened is I had ordered I think it was like, because the rotisserie chickens were like $5 a piece or something like that. and I would always order 40 of them. So basically, every player can have his own chicken, right? Now you got greedy people who wanted two, but basically you're eating a whole freaking chicken, bro. Like if this was back in the day in the wild, like even rich families don't order because it's 8 piece to one, right? Even rich families don't order. With a family of 6, they might get what 2 16 pieces, maybe a 16 piece. Like even a big family doesn't have, you know what I mean? What 40 chickens times 8 pieces, 320 pieces of chicken. Like, come on, y'all. So I had ordered it from, like I said, the store isn't there anymore. So this way I'm not incriminating myself. I had placed the order for them and I had told them, like, they had closed it, let's say the deli department closes at 7 or 8 or whatever it is. I would order it the day before and like, hey, I'm gonna pick it up at 7 or 8 or whatever the case may be. Well, they thought I meant 7 or 8, like in the opening. So when I actually got there in the evening to actually purchase them, like to pick them up, the guy was like, he goes, "We thought you were coming this morning." I was like, "Well, there's no way you could cook all these now." He was like, "No," but he was like, "We had marked them down to whatever, and you got at least 30 of them out there right now." And I was like, "Oh shit." So I systematically called all those different places. And so it actually happened because I stumbled on it by accident. It wasn't anything that I like thought up. It just so happened to work out that way.
No, and I think it plays into the story so good, right? Like I think a lot of things happened along the way that are like, holy shit, I can't believe this is real, right? But like I think like you said, you just stumble upon a lot of these things, right?
Right.
Life happens so quick for you, right? Like the game happens. Like you said, people are calling you, there's an active warrant or there's 30 lawsuits against you, this and that. Like if that ESPN game doesn't happen, your life probably is a lot smoother than it is that the 6 months to a year after. What is life like after that game with IMG Academy?
The biggest part of it is, and I don't talk about it much because I'm a very private person, for good or for better or for worse, should I say. But a lot of it changes because my son is older, like he's getting older. And so because he's getting older, he's seeing things, hearing things, people are saying things, and that part of it. Now, if he wasn't around, I wouldn't give a fuck. My life wouldn't change at all. I'm still going to be me, right? But at the same time, my ego or my pride or whatever, it changed because, like I said in the film, like, you thought I was something before. Now I'm pissed off, right? And I hold shit. Like I'm not the type of person that could just let it go. Like I'm just not gonna let it go. So what it did do is it did put a little fire under me. It's like, yeah, next time I come around and do something, and I promise you this, like you mark it down and play it over and over again when it happens, I'm gonna get things going straight the right way, right? Because we could always just play independent. I don't want to do that. It changed me. Now it made me super focused on, I can't wait to say I told you so. So now I have time.
That's gonna be such a great feeling for you that I told you so. What is the next plans for Bishop Sycamore? What's the second iteration of Bishop Sycamore? Is it getting investors to invest in you, get the proper equipment, get the facilities? Maybe join OSHA, the Ohio
Yeah.
Association.
So
What's the next
yeah.
steps?
So that right there is the. Hold on a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Sorry about that.
You're good.
The sun went down a lot faster than I thought. What's the next step? And I want to be careful in saying that because I don't want to give people too much of a head start on hunting us down. But the very next step is solidifying how we are going to run the next Bishop Sycamore program. Whether I run the Bishop Sycamore program under another name because I just don't want to deal with the nonsense, or whether we keep the name and I tell everybody to fuck off, right? But the first thing that we're going to do is look at the education model that we're going to use, right? So I like Spire Academy, right? Because that's kind of where everybody wants to be. That's the IMG of the North, in my opinion, except that they don't do football. But Spire Academy isn't the school. The school is called like Grand Valley Academy or something like this, right? And they partner up with the athletic arm of, yeah, and basketball does it all the time, right? You got these ISA Academy in Ohio. They go to Saint whatever, and then they all get together and, you know what I mean? Ted Ginn, similar thing. You got Glenville, but you have Ginn Academy. So the guys that go to Ginn Academy still play football at, you know, at Cleveland Glenville. So you have a couple of different models. As far as that, that's the next step, right? What we're going to do as far as the education model. The second step is then, like you said, joining all them fucking weirdos at OSHA. Now, I hate OSHA. I don't like anything about them. They're the worst set of people, right? They basically change all the rules as they see fit, and then they blame athletic directors. Like, well, the reason we do these rules are athletic directors. They go around telling people they're the state. We work for the state. That's what they call themselves, the state. And I'm like, you're not the state. You're just an organization. You're not a state at all, actually, because if you were the state, your boss would be the governor, which he's not. So OSHA can eat a dick as far as I'm concerned. But with that being said, that's the next best move, right? The next best move is to join OSHA in their pathetic, ridiculous, super racist organization, right? And be D7 because we wouldn't have that many kids going to our school and winning state championship over and over and over and over. Like going to beat up Marion Local. There's this little school out here that D7, they don't play anybody. It's a little small town, so everybody goes there and they just win state championships and nobody can even challenge them because these other little schools don't matter. And just go beat the brakes off them. Like terrorize OSHA.
I think that would really piss them off. The guy in the documentary, they show, you know, the kid with glasses, that little nerd of a guy that, you know, tries to, you know, think he's, you know, the librarian almost, you know, grilling you. Like, what's the relationship with him? Have you ever even spoken to him? Or did he kind of just, like, find you and he's like, I'm going to make, you know, his life hell?
I don't know who that is. I've never met a day in my life.
You've never met that guy? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I've never met him.
Yeah. You've never met him?
I don't know anything about him.
Wow. That's so crazy because the guy, you know, you would think like he had known you his whole life.
His whole life, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's right. That's what he did, right? He had no meaning in life, so why not chase me around? The only thing I know about him is that his sister is a pastor and she's a lesbian. So already I don't like him. Yeah, lesbian Christian pastors. I don't rock with any of them. Like none of them. Like I don't fool with them. I don't like them. I don't believe the same philosophy they believe in. We just two different things. Like if you had your consistent interest in me was because in life itself you're a loser, right? So because you're a loser, this made you cool, right? It was your dream, right? You some gay dude from Columbus, Ohio. Don't nobody give a fuck about you. But since the gay people in Hollywood loved you, oh my God, you've made it, right? They bring him to New York. He's getting a round of applause. These weird ass dudes wrote a book. And that's the part that I was like, I looked at everybody else like, how could you side with them? They wrote a book about y'all. Used y'all pictures on the cover, all that. Wrote a book. And went in there and just said stuff that wasn't true, slandered. Like, it's just ridiculous. So I don't, like I said, I don't know him. I don't like, I have never passed him. Like, and we've never sat down and talked. Now, the other dude who's his partner in crime, I've spoken to him extensively, right? And he wasn't shit either, right? Because he knew that stuff wasn't true and he knew a lot of that stuff was nonsense, but he didn't do much to be like, hey, you know, and there's two sides to this and everything else, because guess what? You want to jump onto the moving train. And that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool. Like, we will eventually cross paths, right? So, and then when we cross paths, I want the same energy you was giving on the documentary. I'm going to need that same energy, which I know you're not going to do, right? Because you're not really shit, right? You know what I mean? You just going to, you know what I mean, run to whatever people you know and be like, oh my God, he smacked the shit out of me.
That's what he probably wants you to do, right? And like,
correct.
You don't want to give him the satisfaction of doing that.
Yes, I do. yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely. When you write a book this time, it's gonna be how Roy Johnson whooped my ass because I talk too much. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you want something to write about, if I'm this crazed, deranged criminal that you claim that I am, well, that's what you're asking for, right? Because you must truly not believe that, because otherwise you wouldn't be writing this stuff. Like if you really thought I was this big crazed whatever, at least I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like I'm not about to be talking about this dude. But yeah, you really didn't think that. That's why you felt comfortable just making up shit.
Looking back, like there's so many, parts and twists to this story. What are some messages you think that, the people listening should know from the story that aren't being told?
How many dudes are playing D1 right now? That's the main story. Like that in itself negates anything anybody else said.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of watching a lot of podcasts about it, like clips on TikTok and the documentary. Not once do they talk about, hey, this guy went from a single parent family home to being homeless, playing college football, and now they're at D1, right? Like there's none of this. It was like you said, the three people that weren't with you, were with you for a short period of time, never even actually made it to the IMG game, that are the loudest voices in the room, right?
Right. And of course, right? Because they got paid to be loud. And I get it,
sure.
right? Again, like I said, I knew who you were before you got here. So this whole thought process or thinking that they wouldn't bend the truth, that was never they did exactly what I thought they would do. Right? Remember some of them like, oh, we were playing in the games and for some reason we just knew this was wrong. The nigga, you should have went home. Like you didn't think it was wrong when you were staying in apartments for free. You didn't think it was wrong when you were traveling on the bus to go to different schools and colleges. You didn't think it was wrong. None of that was wrong. But now all of a sudden a camera shows up and you're like, oh my God, it was just so wrong. It was everything else. Yeah. Niggas ain't shit. And that's why I said, like, now I'm not the biggest change as far as who I decide to go help. It's everybody else. It's the middle class, right? It's the class that's forgotten. Because there are plenty of guys that are middle class, hardworking, just need a little bit of film, just need to get in front of some coaches because their parents might not be able to afford $600. Like there's some fucked up shit going on in this little town over here called Reynoldsburg because the budget didn't pass. It's like they're asking for like $800 to play, $500 or something like that to play high school football. Pay to play. Could you imagine that? Pay $500 to play high school football. And I would look at them like, I'd look at the state, look at the government, look at the federal government. Like you can figure out how to help Nigerian gay education. You can figure out how to do that shit, but you can't figure out how to make sure people in the United States can get a full experience in high school. Yeah, you're full of shit.
I've never really thought about that. That's crazy that's an unfortunate situation for that school. I kind of want to transition to your aura, right? Like once this, becomes on full display on X, Twitter, Instagram, people are rocking the Bishop Sycamore merch, right? Barstool's selling merch. People are dressing up as you for Halloween. Talk to me about that. What are your thoughts on that? And did you see any money from that?
No, I didn't see any money from the shirts, but Barstool's owed me some money since they like to do bitch ass interviews with more geeky ass motherfuckers. Like they should be very careful about what they say, right? Because they use Bishop Sycamore that was copyrighted and registered to me. So, but I didn't beef with them. Like I said, I stayed low. Like, hey, make some money, y'all cool, right? But I didn't make any money off that. I never sold any shirts or anything like that. And any Bishop Sycamore shirts or jerseys that did go out, they were our shirts that we had that I just sent to people for free. So like I got a lot of people that hit me up with like, man, I'm a big fan, da 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 da. So I would sign a shirt and like, give me your address, I'll send it to you.
That's gotta be a pretty cool feeling, right? Like while the situation sucked, a lot of bad things happened in your life. There's some positive things, right? Like,
oh my goodness, yeah, the positive, yeah, absolutely.
Positivity that came from it.
Right. So the positive outweighs the negative. The problem is we just only talk about the negative, right? So let's just talk about Kyle Miller, who's down at Tennessee right now. Jeremy Naborn, who took this as a springboard and got to where he got. Javen Peterson and going to John Carroll, and now he's transferring to another school. Like the list goes on and on and on and on, right? About all the positivities, man. One of my favorite stories I talk about all the time, one of our better receivers, Calvin Dawson, he was going to go to college. He ended up getting shot in a robbery, paralyzed from the legs down. and he's still working with our guys and training our guys. You know what I mean? That's a part of the brotherhood. So the positive is that the good thing about all the negativity in the documentary is that it literally set the grass on fire for me and got rid of all the snakes that I didn't need anyway. So I found out who was really in my corner, and that included family, right? So it was interesting. Like, one of my cousins was just talking crazy about me, and I'm like, man, you know me. Like, what's the problem? Yeah. But guess what? I found out a lot about this person, right? I found out a lot about that. I found a circle. So my circle got smaller, but it also got a lot stronger. And that was just the natural laws of physics, right? The pressure that's on the outside forces the pressure to push out. So that right there just worked. And it was just a lot of the positive. And not only that, all the mistakes that I've made that I've learned from and moved on from has made me a stronger, better person, right? I'm definitely a better father, you know what I mean? And I'm definitely a better coach. And if nothing else, I'm definitely a better business person than I was before, right? So all of that stuff is the positive stuff, right? Because you can't possibly come out of darkness without light, right? And that was the thing that I thought was so, so important, is that, we don't speak about the positive. We constantly talk about the negative because that's what gets the clicks, right? The clicks come from the negativity. The clips are gonna come because I call these motherfuckers gay. The clips are gonna call because I call these motherfuckers this. The clips are gonna come because I said these niggas ain't shit. That causes clicks, right? But to me, it's causing the clicks for them all to keep their eyes on what the real message is. You know what I mean? And that real message is, that through all of this, just or unjust, through all of it, it's still providing an opportunity to help those that are in need. And that's the bottom line, regardless of how it comes along, right? People might not disagree with this, or people might not like this, or they might not like my methods, right? Or they might not like my attitude. They might not like my facial expressions. They might not like a few things about me. But at the end of the day, this is an avenue to help people that are in need. And if more people, administrators, public school system coaches, would take the passion and half the effort that I would put in, you wouldn't have this nonsense of Columbus City Schools, the largest school district in Ohio, sending 6, 7, 8, 9 people D1. They should be sending 30 or 40. Like, how could you not? Well, that's because that push and that passion behind it isn't there. So, if everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing, there would be a need for Bishop Sycamore. So,
I think you provided such a great avenue. I hope Bishop Sycamore 2.0, or whatever we rebranded as, whatever you rebranded as, it truly helps those in, tough situations get to where they need. Like you said, like you're saying, that only to have that many D1 kids from Cleveland, which has a ton of football, ton of great football. Those kids, let's get them the right, tools to get, pass classes, be D1 eligible, get seen. Let's concentrate our money on that, prop those kids up, so they can give back to the city when they make it, right?
right. And some people get it. And here's the reality of it. The reality of it is the models to look at for what high school sports, and I'm not just saying football, but high school sports should look like, is Ted Ginn, there's there. Maslin, Coach Moore, and I know people are gonna be like, well, Maslin's different, and I get that it is. Maslin football is a completely different thing. But look at that model, right? Look at Miami Central, and obviously for everybody in the hood, they should look at St. Francis Academy. Like, if you want to be a program and you're a coach, you need to get a little bit of money. It doesn't cost that much to fly. Masai is a great dude. Call him up and fly to St. Francis Academy and say, hey, how are you producing national champions? How are you producing that many D1 guys in that little terrible area, going to a little small Catholic school that nobody knows about? And then looking at him, I spent a lot of time talking to him about, how to improve as a person, how to improve as a dad, and then being a better coach, general manager, athletic director, whatever you want to call it. That'll slowly come along. So,
those are all great things, and I'm excited that you're taking the next steps and, growing as a person. Tell me what is next on the horizon for Coach Roy. Tell me what you envision. We're kind of reminiscing. What's the future look like for you?
Like I said, we're going to get back into playing, and we're going to go. The goal is to go after a state championship. I used to want to go after, national, right? Because if you want to be a national champion, you want to be, we Coach Kyle, we played against Cleveland St. Ignatius a couple times. And I used to just sit on the other side of the stadium being a fan, right? Because you're being a fan, a historian of the game. I'm looking at Coach Kyle like, man, you got 5, 6 national champions at Cleveland St. Ignatius. Like, this is, that's where you want to be. And that was the goal. But what I did learn is, crawling before you walk, right? So let's get into OSHA and let's start beating the brakes off people. And that I'm not going to have any mercy. They should just start with a running clock. I'm literally going to beat the brakes off all these little schools. Like I'm going to have all these parents in the stands. Like we don't want our kids going out there. Like they're going to give us the state championship because nobody's going to want to play us.
No, I'm excited because, I know how hard, it is to get to that, moment, what's led up to that. And I hope HBO, ESPN, all those people keep that same energy, when you're in OSHA and you're beating the brakes off these schools, you're doing it, by the book, essentially this time. Like, I'm very excited to see that. I know everyone in the stand, and everyone's going to be rocking with you on social media. I think it's going to be, I told you so moment. And I really can't wait for that second documentary when you can really tell all these people to go F off.
Yeah, that's the goal, man. I hope I don't pussy up, right? And then take the higher road when it happens. Like, I'm just thankful for this opportunity. I hope I keep the same energy, right? Because let me tell you something, it's tiring to carry that. So I've been carrying it for 2 years, right? So it's tiring to carry that. And so you can put so much more energy in focusing on the goal versus I just want to be right or I told you so. And so if you focus on the goal, the I told you so will be there. You know what I mean? But my personality won't allow for that, right? Because that's what I'm going to tell them. Like when I'm beating the brakes off them. Like I promise you, I'm going to tell coaches that when I go to the Coaches Association meeting and all that. Because they're going to be like, you recruit, you're going to talk all the shit you want to talk. I don't care. I'm going to beat the brakes off you and be like, this is their fault. Go call them. Tell them I told you. Because you should tell them. I was happy losing 55-0. But they didn't want us to do that. They wanted us to come play you. So I'm going to come around and
ready.
Yeah, get it all. Extra butter too, because I'm gonna tear some heads off, man. This is gonna be great. That part I'm not gonna love. And then I'm telling you, the minute when they get up, they line up, they hand you the state championship trophy. I'm gonna break that shit right in their face. I don't want that shit. Take that piece of shit with you. That shitty ass. You get $2-3 off every ticket all season long, and the best thing you can get me is a wood fucking trophy. This shit should be a fucking crystal.
You kill me, man. I know you're a busy man. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Listen,
it's been a blessing having you on this show, talking about all this stuff, clearing the air. I think it's refreshing to hear your point of view. I think you get a bad rap. It's only up from here, and I know you're going to do great things.
Listen, man, I appreciate you guys, man. You guys are something else, man. And then, like I said, man, we'll talk, man. We got to keep your airways bumping, man. So all these people I got connections with, you need to interview them too.
Let's do it.
My man.
Shoot for the moon, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right, my friend.
All right, brother.